So for those who haven't been to one of these before, we're gonna have a little chat, and then we'll open up for questions at the end. So how many of you here have seen Fuzzy? Okay.
Yeah.
No spoilers.
No spoilers, because there's a lot of things we can spoil. So we're gonna start with the very basics. How did you two meet and decide that you actually want to do this together?
Jeff emailed me like a decade ago. 13. How long ago was it?
12
years ago. Yeah, like 12 years ago, Jeff emailed me and asked me if I would be interested in talking to him about writing musicals. We went out to brunch.
Chicken and waffles.
Yes, and then we started writing musicals.
Like the next day.
The next day. It was great.
I pitched an idea for that I had rolling around in my head, and we talked for a long time. And at the end of it, he said, "Well, let's do it." You said, "Let's do it." And I said, "Like, should we try to write a song?" And you said, "No, let's write a musical. Let's start tomorrow." And we did.
So
And that musical is how we met you.
that's how we met 10 years ago. And I applied for her job.
Because we're on camera. You just gotta fix the button.
We're live streaming around
There we
the
go.
globe.
There
Thank
you
you.
So how did the idea for this one come about, and why a musical? Because I know at one point it was going to be maybe a play with a song, or...
We didn't. All right. Several years ago, I went home to help my mother with a health crisis that had come up very suddenly. And I thought I was going to be there for a couple of weeks, and I ended up being with her for 8 months. And somewhere in the middle of that crisis, she's fine, she's all better, but somewhere in the middle of that time, it was such an intense experience in my life. And besides being my writing partner, Will is one of my best friends, and we talk every day. So we had been talking about parents and children and the relationship you have with your parent as an aging human being, which is so different from the relationship you have with your parent as a child. And I said, well, I think there's something here that maybe I need to write about, because there's just so much that I'm experiencing that seems like I should get it on the page somehow. And I was like, I think I might write a play. Do you want to write a song for it? I think it's a play with a song. And you were like, great. And now it's not that at all.
I feel like my experience of that was
Great.
trying to convince Jeff to write about the experience. I do not
That's
remember it
probably
being your
true.
idea. I feel like everybody was telling you to write about the thing.
That might be true.
I think that is true.
That is true. I'm not an autobiographical writer as a rule. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that what we write, what I write, isn't personal or it doesn't have facts in them that I know are true. But I don't usually write about my own life as a thing. And that said, Fuzzy is not about my life or my family.
No.
But it is based on true events, which is a thing they say in the movies, to say that something is kind of true and kind of not. That's true of this. Like, some of the events actually happened to me and my mother. The story is not what happened to us. And I thought that I wasn't the right person to write about something that was happening to me, and somebody convinced me. But I really did think it was just going to be, I wrote a monologue and the beginnings of an opening lyric to what I thought was going to be a song that launched a play. And then it just kept blossoming in different directions. And at that point, we weren't talking about puppets. It was just this
Yeah,
story.
it was just an idea.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a spoiler, but one of the fascinating things I find about the show is that it's through scored. It's not through sung, but there's always music happening from over here. How did you get there rather than, during the book scenes, the band's just in there waiting to play again?
I don't remember when that happened exactly. I think we knew once we had defined that there were going to be 3 musicians who played and were somehow a part of it. I think that's when my brain was sort of like, what if there was music the whole time? And Jeff was very on board with that idea, thankfully. But that I remember I was like in Kansas City at the time. Like I do remember that I was like, this should be through scored. And I remember being in Kansas City only because Kansas City, no shade to Kansas City, is a little bit depressing, especially in winter. And I was like, what if there was music the whole time? And Kansas City is plainy. Like it's sort of like in the plain.
And my experience of that is we had a draft. We'll get to the puppets in a second, but we had a draft of a thing and we had songs. And my remembrance is you were like, all right, now that it's a thing, let me take it because I have something I want to do, basically. And you said, I want to add some underscoring, is basically what you said, and then emerged.
Oh, and then I just like took it and ran with it and was like, here.
Something about us is we communicate, we talk almost every morning for a long time, but we don't often tell each other when we're going to deliver something to be worked on. You often call it pulling a Beyonce.
Yeah,
because, because she'll drop an album, and so a song will appear in my inbox, or a draft. I'll send him a draft of a lyric or an idea, and you totally Beyonce this into my inbox. You were like, all right, here it is. I was like, what do you mean here it is? And I opened it up, and there were like 16 pieces of music that were not sung, that were all the stuff in the middle. And because I can read music, I had a sense of what it was, and you did talk about it occasionally while working on it because the themes of the show are adult. This is not a show about or necessarily for children, because it has puppets in it, that's a whole other thing. But
don't worry, there's a 10-year-old coming to see it next week.
Absolutely. It's okay for kids. It's not like dirty or anything, but it is about adult themes, ideas, and I opened up all the stuff and I looked at the music that you had written. Is there a puppet? No. There's always a puppet.
Yeah.
And I could read the music to see exactly what you were going for, but you worked on it a little bit at a time. You'd say, I'm having a hard time with this section. It's going to take a couple of days because it makes me so sad to write it.
I was also like low-key depressed at the time, so like there was a lot going on.
And so you took your time working your way through it in such a way that I didn't know how much you were writing. Right. And then I got it, and there was all this music.
It's a lot of music.
It's a lot of music, and I did not hear that music until we did a private reading of it last May, and heard all the music for the first time because I knew I had heard the songs because we had made demos of the songs that people sing. But I hadn't heard any of that music, and then totally understood what was going on inside your head. Because one of the crazy things about working with a composer is he hears things in 3 dimensions because he already knows what it is, and I don't always experience it until I've heard it in the way that you hear it. So I don't, like if you hear what a composer has written just on a piano, you don't even know what it is until you hear all of the pieces, because he's already, in some way, has that stored in there because you wrote it that way.
Yeah.
So until I heard 3 musicians play it last May, I was like, oh, I see what we're doing. Because the compositional part of this is so deeply entrenched in the dialogue, and that was a big part of our discovery process. Last May, we did a little workshop this February that was not music necessarily as much. And then here was to integrate that with this, because they are always in constant dialogue with each other. And it's not just underscoring, that is a character in the show. Those 3, the music that comes there is a character in the show.
I feel like we've got time for like one more question if we're going to answer every single one like that.
Let's go to the annoying question.
Great.
What comes first, the words or the music?
Usually the contract.
The words first. And let's talk specifically about, for Fuzzy, how does do co-lyricists? So how does that work specifically on this show?
I don't know. We just sort of like write the whole thing. Jeff says this, and it's true. We sort of just write the whole thing together. And I think like once we had figured out it was a musical.
I called it a playsical for a long time. That didn't go over well.
Yeah. No. Once we had discovered it was a musical, I think it just sort of like sometimes I definitely always think I cannot. I can, but like I don't often do words without music. Like it's all like one like thought in my brain, and so I don't know. I like blackout when I write. So like,
Same.
yeah, it's like hard to describe like the creative flow thing, but it just sort of happens organically.
And
And sometimes everything is different.
Every song is different. Like there is one song in this show that was completely music first.
Oh right, yeah.
We had a piece of music that you had written at some point that we didn't know what to do with, and we got to a place in this show where we're like, oh, something happens here. It's a song, but what is the song? And you pulled out that piece of music, and it's a very important song in the show, but that was all music.
Oh.
And sometimes I will send him a complete idea of a lyric that will change and evolve, but I'll be like, I think it's something like this, and sometimes he sets it completely, and sometimes he sets some of it, and he'll call me and be like, hey, I really messed you up. Please forgive me, but I really like what I did. And vice versa. Like sometimes he'll send me something that's musical, and I'll be, hey, I really messed you up. So sorry. And when we say we write it all together, we apportion who does what because that's how billing works, but that is not how my experience of writing with a partner is. I feel like we write it all together. I am more in charge of the words in general, and he's more in charge of the music in general, but we're very in each other's business because the business is both of us.
Yeah.
So
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
yeah, how'd you get to this sound? This rather than because I think of Imagine Harry is more of a kind of pop musical theater, and as I said, it feels so contained in so many ways. So just 3 musicians, 3 actors. How'd you get to the sound for this show? Or it just appeared?
Well, we went into it, or I went into it with the limitation of the 3 musicians, and I was talking to our music director, Patrick Solkin, about this morning. Like, I feel like there are 2, like when you think of like westerns and like Western Nebraska and like the openness of the space, there's like 2 sounds. There's like Aaron Copland, and then I'm like super interested in the guy who wrote the score to The Last of Us and Brokeback Mountain. Gustavo Santaolalla. Like his guitar playing is like so expressionistic of that, and that's super. I don't know. I'm really inspired by that, and because like there's a piano, which is like my instrument, and a guitar, which I love, and bass. Like I don't know. I just started building it from there.
And interestingly, you've said that in this particular piece of writing, even though the piano is his instrument, the guitar is your voice in this.
Yeah. The guitar is like super interesting.
And as a producer, you would. Like the reason there are we put limitations on our writing here is there are only 3 people in it and only 3 band members because we wanted it to be producible. Like we wanted the limitations help as writers. You're like, oh, it's not 15 people, that helps. But really, we wanted to write something that was aimed. It's a small story. We were aiming for exactly this theater, exactly this size of theater, and the only way to aim for this size of theater is to have not too many people in it.
Yeah.
I remember that you said there's only 3 instruments from one of our earliest calls, but also you said it's already orchestrated.
Yeah.
And I was just like, bless you, thank you.
Well, I orchestrated it as I wrote it. Like there was never a moment when it was just like piano. It was always the 3 instruments, at least with the score. Like the songs, I was just piano, but then once I started scoring it, I was like, oh, this is how this is all gonna work.
Do we want to talk about the puppet of it all?
Sure.
How'd you get to puppets? Why isn't it just 3 humans on stage? Why do we have friends?
Well, we wrote a song for like one of these crazy pandemic things, where somebody was like, why don't you write, it was like, write songs from movies that should never be musicals, or write songs from IP that you'll never get the rights to. And somebody asked us to write a song for E.T., and we did, and love that song.
Love that song. It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. But Teddy and I, so Teddy, who's the puppeteer in the show, he and I are friends, and after we'd written the song, I was like, hey, would you want to like make an E.T. puppet for this like weird concert we're doing? He's like, yeah. because puppeteers.
It's a song that E.T. is singing about his friend Elliot.
Yeah, while they're on the bike.
While they're on
It's
the
like-
bike heading over the moon.
Yeah. So it's like, and Teddy was like, yeah, sure. And so we got our friend Mackay to sing it, and Teddy like puppeteered the whole thing. And after seeing that, because Jeff was with his mother in
right.
Nebraska at the time, he was like, what if we like did this with puppets? And I was like, okay.
Because the subject matter, because we had started to work some, it felt heavy, like it had a heaviness to it. And that wasn't my intent in trying to get it on the page. I wanted to write about how you free yourself from heaviness, how you meet your parent in a place that has light and joy in it, even though the circumstances may be dark. But no matter how I tried to slice that, it felt heavy, and we had this experience with this puppet. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if the thing about puppets is they add a layer of abstraction to story that allows you as a writer, and hopefully you as an audience, to not feel the weight of what they're talking about, because they're just these furry little people.
Yeah.
And our gamble was that if that works, if you're able to watch that and be like, oh, well, that's a puppet, that's not upsetting what they're talking about, then when the actual emotion hits, it in a weird way can hit you even deeper, because it's a bit of a mean trick, I will say. But because you're not prepared for it, because it's just this little fur ball, then when the emotion hits, it's purer, because puppets can only experience emotion one thing at a time. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm scared. They don't have all the in-between stuff that we have as human beings. So an audience gets to, I think, experience in a way, you feel like you're experiencing it one thing at a time, and then what we're trying to invite you to do is to feel it in 3 dimensions, and there's a point in the show where I think the stage explodes in emotion and you get to have all those feelings. That's why puppets.
So talk about the development of the show, because it's not been in development for long.
No.
You kind of got here very quickly.
We did.
Yeah, we wrote it, and then we scored it, and then we weren't sure if it was a viable idea.
We gave it to Ellie first.
Yeah, we gave it to Ellie first, and she was like
The director.
The director. She was very excited about it.
We thought we were meeting her for notes, and she said, my note is, let's do it.
Yeah, and at the same time, we had. Am I allowed to talk about that?
Yeah.
Great. So we had submitted it to NAMT, which is the National Alliance for Musical Theater, which Brandon used to run.
Which is how we met Brandon.
Which is how we met Brandon. And 2 things sort of happened concurrently. We were finalists for it.
This organization has a fall festival in October that presents 8 musicals to theaters all over the country, with the hitch being that they only present 45 to 50 minutes of your musical, which is a complicated thing for writers to navigate, because a musical is an entire idea, and you have to find a way to boil it down to an idea that kind of sells it in a way, which is complex. And in a way, no shade to NAMT, because we had a great time at NAMT when Brandon was there. I didn't want to get it, because I didn't want to have to boil this idea down to something that wasn't a representation of the entire thing. So I was slightly relieved when we didn't get it.
But
However,
before we hadn't gotten it, we were finalists for it, and we were trying to figure out if it was a viable idea. So we did like an exploratory session on our own.
Yep.
Like
we produced our own
we produced
workshop.
our own little workshop with Ellie, with Cass, with John, with Teddy, to see if the idea worked, which it did very successfully, and we filmed it on an iPhone, thank God. And then in July of last summer, I did a concert here with Matt Doyle, and Brandon, having been finalist, Barrington Stage, read Fuzzy.
Because Brandon was on the committee.
Yep.
And
Are you with us?
Yeah, and was like, oh, did anybody snatch it up? And I was like, no, but we did just do a reading of it if you want to read it, and see it. And Alan and Brandon watched it, and then wanted to talk to us, and we were like, oh, we'll get some notes from Barrington Stage. And like, they were like, so, we'd love to program it. And we were like,
Excuse us?
Pardon? Because that's really not how this happens. And then we did another, we wanted to figure out some stuff from the reading last May, so we did another little like couple of days with some friends. This year where we explored some stuff before we got here.
That was all our own. We just did that in our own little umbrella. And brought
All of which is to say, if you have $250,000,
we're available.
we are fully willing to, take your money and continue to.
No, we're
the show.
super. We're very aware and grateful for where we are starting tonight because it never happens.
Yeah.
Ever. Musicals take forever because everybody gets their hands on them. And what happened here is somebody noticed it, showed it to somebody else. They both liked it. They asked us some very serious questions about, are you sure can you promise us it's producible? Basically, with that meeting, we were like, we promise. And then we challenged you on that every day. And you guys supported us so much and kind of stayed just in the right amount of our hair, and then came in to be very involved in final talks about focusing and questions that helped us keep writing and getting to the nugget of what we were doing. And I'm so grateful because it just never, ever, ever happens that you write a thing, you knock on some doors, all the doors are shut, they were all shut, and then somebody says, I like your thing, and 14 months later, you present it to people. Never.
So my side of this story.
Oh, I'm so
is, so the National Institute of Musical Theater is also where Come From Away came from. Draws and Chaperone. It's a very successful title. No, that's the other people.
Just kidding.
They're gone now. So
Yeah.
And I ran that for 8 years. I've been on the committee. I just did another 3-year term. And so last year I got the musical. The second round, loved it, and it happens very rarely for me. Like Chinese Lady, if you remember that from 3 years ago, I read that and called Julie Boyd immediately, said, I'm sending you something, you need to read it tonight. And I literally got it, and I was like, oh, I want to give this to Alan, I'm not allowed to, because it's a private process. So then we went on to be a finalist, where a colleague of mine actually said in the room, I just don't understand why there has to be puppets. And I was like, you people don't get this musical. I then loudly declared to all my colleagues in the room, fine, I'm going to give it to Alan next week, and we're going to do it next year. Very bossy Barrington. It was like, fine, you're all wrong. So I give it to Alan, but Alan's a busy man. So when you were there downstairs with Matt Doyle, I specifically was like, Alan, this is Will Van Dyke. You know the musical Fuzzy that's on your desk. So Alan then read it, and Alan called me and was like, we have to do the show. Instant. And then we watched the video where I openly wept at my desk while at work. Thanks for that. I try to have no private work policy. But it's been very, very quick, but it also has I have always felt the two of you knew exactly what it was and had complete control of it at all times. There's never a moment where I'm like, oh God, that song still? Everything felt I don't want to say perfect. Everything felt intentional and right.
Well, we also, I will say, we like to write. So, that helps because we're not particularly precious until we are, but we're only ever precious about things where we, really have, a strong opinion about it. And so,
we take
you and Alan and Ellie and Patrick and everybody guiding us, truly guiding us to the thing that is opening tonight was so helpful, and I think that also allowed for the more expedient process of it. But also they wrote Gypsy in 6 months, guys. So it's just a different thing.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the system is a little constipated in how it helps things get to the stage. To could use a little help.
Yes.
But this has been a very free flowing process.
Stop there. And yeah, because it normally takes years and years and years. I mean, A Crossing took us 8 years to develop. Mr. Saturday Night was 5 years.
But this idea also just arrived pretty full-fledged. We didn't know if it would work when we did it last May, but it was a pretty complete idea. to your point, like we were like, well, that is kind of the idea we have. Whether it works or not, that's the idea.
So how has the show grown and changed over the last, let's say, since we got into the space?
So much.
We got all the things.
So much. I mean, there are musicians on stage. They are a part of the show, and how they work without spoiling the show. We weren't quite sure, so that was a big question mark. That we've gained so much clarity for like being in the space.
We've cut a lot of stuff.
We've cut a lot of stuff. Like, it's just been a lot of like, to use your word, focus on the thing. And like the great part about working with not only these musicians and Ellie and Patrick, but like these three particular actors is they are so incredibly smart, and like listening to them, it's just been a lot of like receiving information and then just hearing what the problem is, not the problem, but like hearing the challenges and then clarifying them for everyone while not breaking the thing.
And we're led by Ellie Heyman, who is our director, who is singularly collaborative. Like, she leads a room as if everyone's writing it together.
Yeah.
Even though there are two people in charge of that, everybody's writing it together. Everybody's DNA is all over it. I think everybody would, if you ask them, feel like they are part of the creation of the thing. They get no percentage of that money, but there is no money to get percentage of. So, yes. But everybody is very, very, very a part of the family that made the thing. And I'm not a big proponent of like, hey, we're a family. But this is such a special group of people, and everybody is very invested in its success. And I mean success from the standpoint of telling the story that we're trying to tell. The artistic success of it. And I mean, Will knows this, in terms of like focusing and shaping things, I really have a belief as a writer that if you don't cut your favorite thing, you're doing it wrong. And I think we've both cut our favorite thing a couple of times in the last couple of weeks.
I'm also having like an incredible, immense moment of gratitude for the actors in the show currently sitting up here, because we're sitting in front of a television, which all of you are experiencing of as us sitting in front of a television. And when I tell you what is inside this
That's
thing,
crazy.
and the fact that they just make it look like they are watching TV is really wild, because it is just a bunch of wires and like lights and stuff.
Yeah, I'd say it's interesting to also work with a team where very quickly the two of us and the two of you and me and Alan were all very simpatico. Remember, they did a thing a producer doesn't like, where it's like, well, we have a cast, and you just kind of go, oh, okay, who's in your cast? And they're like, John Cariani. I was like, yes. He said Cass Morgan, who I just like love. Cass, she's an icon.
Like an icon.
And then
Like
Teddy
true.
Udane, who from Little Shop.
Yeah.
And we're just like, great. We're like, great, casting done.
Yeah.
There's just been kind of a
And here's the other side of that story. I had a great deal of anxiety about that, because I'm a big believer in, the people who have put in the time. If they want to be there, they should be there. And I, was like, oh, what if they're like, Bernadette Peters is available? I'm like, Cass Morgan wants to do it, So it's, you really embraced our spirit of loyalty. Luckily, our spirit of loyalty came with some pretty fancy people. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's because the last thing you want is for them to say, oh, and the person who plays the role of the mother is insert name of actress you never heard before. And in our world, we kind of go, well, I kind of want to cast Morgan for it.
Yeah.
Instead, we got to cast Morgan right away. So it was also very weird to do a show where we had no auditions. A very weird process to actually meet all of them for the first time on day one. And I've spent time in a room together in Midtown Manhattan. Let's open up for questions.
Sure.
So if you've been here before with me, you've heard this before. We ask that you ask questions and not make statements. And no grandstanding or monologuing like I'm doing right now. Also, because the two of them have broad personal things, it's not an opportunity to dig deeper into it, although this has been some form of an interesting therapy session for all three of us. So we'll open up for questions.
Thank you, Brandon. I was going to ask, does the puppet earn scale, but I'm going to avoid that question. But I do have a question about how the actors interact with the puppet. Was that, you know, there's got to be a process because you've got actors and then you've got the puppeteer, and they may have lived in different worlds, or did the actors have experience, you know, being on stage with a puppet?
Teddy
before?
is a professional puppeteer.
Well,
And a
Teddy is
fantastic
a
actor.
Teddy is a professional actor, but he's also a professional puppeteer.
Yeah.
So like, his ability to, it's actually it's very funny, like in the rehearsal room and process, because he gets so used to, like feeling what other people are saying with his hands. So he constantly is doing this, and so then, like when you're on a break, he's got like ghost hand of like doing it, and it's really wild because he just intuits people's speaking, and I think that having gone through the process with him on Little Shop and watching just how puppeteers work in general, like other actors just get so into it so quickly that like they just like drink the Kool-Aid. It's really fun.
And Teddy said to us on the first day of our exploration last May, because we were talking about puppets, and he said when he was in college, a professor of his said, he was paraphrasing, but he said, my professor said, puppets are vessels for empathy, which is true. You just project onto them something and they give you something back, and he really was a primary helper in us figuring out how to use puppets.
And it's really wild, like when you see the show and see what he does, like I would think that he would not be able to walk.
Yeah.
And he's like doing great.
Yeah.
It's like much easier for him than Little Shop, which is so funny to me.
Yeah.
But like those puppets are so big that this is like a much different thing.
Yeah, and actually it took me a while to realize in a rehearsal studio that they put up a mirror behind everyone, but where the audience is, and you see Teddy constantly refining, because he's also like part Buster Keaton.
Yeah.
Like he's a little bit of
He's
everything.
a physical comedian.
And come see the show, and then come again and just watch what Teddy does.
It's amazing.
It is. I
It's a
refer
tour de
to
force.
him as a wizard, because what he's doing, because he knows the entire everyone's line in the entire show, because almost every line comes out of his hands. It's
Yeah, we really
mind-boggling.
conceived an idea of two tour de force performances that become our one performance. So John is one half of that performance, as Teddy is the other, and there's one creature who is the thing you're watching. And I've never seen anything like it, and
Yeah, the hilarious part about it, well, not the hilarious, but like the depressing part about it is the two of them are doing something so unbelievable, and the only thing you're paying attention to is this like little fuzzy thing. Yeah.
down here.
You know, I just saw a picture of Fuzzy, and I said, "Oh, Elmo." I mean, the red. So my question is, how did you come to the design of what the puppet was
We
gonna
did
look like?
an amazing designer named
Amanda Villalobos.
who's a drama desk.
She just won a drama desk.
Yeah, she came to all the designs of the puppets, and
We had conversations.
yeah, we had conversations, but she's pretty unbelievable.
Like I had opinions. You know, we had a meeting, and I was like, well, it says in the script, they're monsters, but they're humanoid. They're not human, but they're humanoid. And because I said to Amanda, I do think, you know, use your imagination. They can be whatever. They're not Muppets. That isn't what we're trying to do. But they do need to be approachable. You know, like they don't have to be cute, but you have to want to spend some time with them. She was like, I got you, kid. I got you.
And she gave us some sketches, and then literally when those puppets came out first day of rehearsrsal, like the energy in the room changed.
Yeah.
Because it was like the star is here.
Yeah.
Like he is here now. Here's his mother. Like everyone
Very
in the room was
emotional.
like everyone got really
Very
emotional.
yeah.
So it was like, Fuzzy, Fuzzy's here. And you will literally, it's like I have a weird obsession with puppets now.
Yeah.
So thanks, guys.
You're welcome. And we also treat them like they don't get thrown around.
Yeah.
You know, they're treated with a great deal of reverence. Everybody says, you know, like I'll say hi to them if I see them just lying there. And nobody just like tosses them. If they lay them down, they're laid down with a great deal of care. It's wild.
Yes.
A couple of my friends and my wife say, who wants to see a musical about puppets? Now, how much of the play is puppets and how much is human? And what's my answer to them?
You can say what?
It's both.
It's both. The
It's
whole
humans
time. Yeah.
and puppets. You always see the humans. The
Oh,
puppets
yeah.
are almost always present, and it's them, both species, telling the story together.
Do you know?
And they can't do it without each other.
Do you know who Penn and Teller are? The magicians, Penn and Teller.
Sort of in
It-
Vegas.
Oh,
Yeah.
great! It's like Penn and Teller. You're seeing a magic trick, but we're also exposing the magic trick at the same time. And if you don't want to watch puppets,
You don't have to.
because there are other things happening, and you will get the exact same story because other people are telling the story at the same time. The puppets are there to help a buy-in, but we're telling a bigger story. It's a story about a group of people telling a story that happens to star puppets. So we've been in lots of conversations about how to market it. Your question is a great one. It's not a puppet show, it's a show that has puppets in it.
It's back here.
One of my favorite parts was the use of different like mixed medias, and I was wondering what the decision process was like to decide to use the projector.
That was Ellie.
That was Ellie. Yeah, I think
I think that she was probably riffing on something that was in the writing, because there is a sequence that we wrote that we said, well, something happens here. Maybe it's projections. Maybe it's a movie. We didn't know what it was. We just wanted to give somebody's imagination a way to run free. And Ellie has done a lot with old projectors, and she was like, "What about this?" And they did a workshop with the designers, and that's how they arrived at that.
Ellie also comes from an experimental theater background, and I think that because the show is very difficult for the human in it, his story is very difficult. Her goal was to make the show very difficult for him physically to do, and I think that is also where that came into play,
Yeah.
because she puts
him
that
through
man
it.
through it.
Yeah, as much as Teddy is doing, John is doing as
A
much.
lot of overhead projectorography
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the show. Yes.
You call it town Monsterville, and there's this, what do monsters have to do with this? I saw the show.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't
just how-
understand.
I think in writing it, they're not people, so they call themselves monsters.
They were sweet.
I know, but
I just don't think of monsters as sweet.
You should see Monsters Inc.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
No, I think I think
That's their species.
Yeah,
I
I
thought
think
in
it's
writing
just-
it, that's their species. They're monsters. We are people. They are monsters, and I don't. You know what? The funny thing about that question is asking a writer why sometimes when we don't have a conscious memory of writing, I don't remember writing it. I remember revising it, and that's something that just happened, and we were both like, okay,
yeah.
Why are monsters called monsters are called monsters, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
They use that term, you know?
Yes, right here.
I loved your words. I loved how y'all included the musicians in part of the storytelling and how they had backgrounds as well. Could you talk about that process and was that something that you knew you wanted to include, or just how did that get wrapped into the storytelling of it?
It grew as the idea grew. It was sort of like as the plant was growing, as
I remember asking you.
Yeah, as it became from a play with one song to a musical to a fully scored through thing, they just sort of became characters, and then once they became three things, and that's how I knew it was going to be a score of three things, and that's how it just
There's a
sort
nice-
of grew.
Yeah, a nice mirror of 3 actors, 3 musicians. But I do remember asking you, I was a bit into it, and I was like, I feel like some other people should talk. Can they talk?
Yeah.
And you said yes, and I said no. Contractually, can they talk?
Oh, yeah.
And you said, we'll figure that out down the
Yeah,
road.
yeah.
Let's write what we want to write, and then figure out if it's possible. Because there are unions and questions about that, and then we brought that question to an organization, and they figured it out.
Yeah.
It's been done before. It's not we
been
didn't
done
invent
before.
it.
We figured it out.
Yeah.
So now that you're at opening night and the whole thing is locked, you're gonna roll, think about next? On this production, do you think of it having legs to go to other theaters, to get bigger on a bigger stage, to?
I don't know.
We have hopes.
We have hopes. I'm just like very excited to like open a show. I've never like fully opened a show I wrote before, like in a professional setting. So that's like really exciting for me. Yeah, I would love to continue to like work on the show and see where else it could go. But like also, if this is the only experience like Fuzzy has, like
We've made the best version we can, and we made it for this audience.
yeah, so we're like
So
excited to be
we
here.
have, we have to have this be enough. It's not that we're not trying to invite people or that we don't have hopes. I will say that every single designer, every actor, everybody on the team has come up to one of us and said, we want to keep working on this. What can we do to make that possible? And we're like, invite people.
Yeah.
But also everybody was just very dedicated to getting the best version that we could get to in the time we had by tonight.
Yeah.
And we arrived at it like 15 seconds before rehearsal ended yesterday.
Yeah.
And I am not kidding. The last piece of the lighting design ended like 5 seconds before rehearsal ended yesterday.
And I think you can tell, this is just like, I'm going to talk about something Ellie said at the end of the process yesterday when we froze the show. Like, as you can see, the show feels not like a rehearsal, but it feels scrappy.
Handmade.
It feels handmade and scrappy. And she said to the 6 people who are going to tell this story every night, things will go wrong every day because of what we're asking them to do and because of what she specifically is asking them to do, where there's so much to do that there's no way that they're ever going to do it all right. And so it will be its own organic thing every single evening, which is, I think, cool and will make it feel alive in a way that maybe some other musicals don't. So that's like also a really exciting part about it.
Yeah, when we were doing this exploration last May, the day we shared it with like 30 people. And John, who plays the human, was nervous because he has to do a lot in it. And one of us said to him, this piece of writing is a container for imperfection. Like there isn't a thing as perfect. And we wrote it for that. You don't have to feel like you got to get anything right. Just do as best you can and we'll all find out together. And it has every night been a little bit different.
It's definitely a show that doesn't want like turntables and people flying.
No.
And such, you know,
That would hurt it.
Once we get it out into the world and we get it licensed, some terrible community theater will do some production on YouTube that YouTube will hate. That will try to do too much. But like literally just the version in the rehearsal studio where I left at my desk, I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the show. And someone will make it all glitzy and overly polished at some point, and you'll enjoy your residuals. But like, it is exactly what it's supposed to be. And like, it can't go to Radio City. It won't work at Radio City.
One of the designers asked me, is this what you pictured? And I said, I pictured a table and 2 chairs and some puppets. That's what I pictured. So,
This is great.
yeah,
Got a couch.
I got a couch.
Time for one more question.
You wrote this beautiful story. When or how or why did it go from the story of the son and mother to telling the story of the son and mother? You know what I mean?
That is I wanted to write about writing itself. Because I haven't seen that on, my husband's gonna kill me. He always says, don't cry. I wanted to, nobody talks about the creative process on stage. And I really wanted to see what that was like on stage. And the central song in this is a song about why we write. It's about why I write, it's about why he writes, and we wrote it together. And it's by far the most autobiographical thing in the show. And it's why I always want to write, but it's why I wanted to write this piece of writing. Because the thing that happens at the end of this show, which I will not spoil, actually happened between me and my mother. And that is something about writing.
I cry at home.
I know.
I choose to cry fully at home in private, and Jeff just loves to do it in public.
On YouTube.